is Scotland, The Drive, with Alan Douglas and Ali Bally.
And we're back again for another edition of Scotland The Drive. What have we got this week?
Well, they said it wouldn't last, and here we are.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, what have we got this week? Well, last week we sort of hopped on to Charge Place Scotland, and we've had some reaction to that. So I think that's a good one to get into.
Well, I've been talking to a man who knows all the way through the public charging maze. If you're an EV owner, you'll know that there are a few problems ahead. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be talking about fuel prices as well, conventional fuel. You know, that old idea where you go into a filling station and you put this liquid in, this very expensive liquid in your car.
Gold.
So we'll be
liquid.
talking about that because there's all sorts of changes happening with fuel prices. And
On
your pal Chesney.
My pal Ches has been there to join us. Lynn and I caught up with him, and we'll be asking him about his first drive. And basically what he's doing, he's coming to Glasgow Sunday, coming up on Sunday, the 8th of March. So in concert at Oranmore. So we'll be catching up with him.
Some people might not know who Chesney Hawkes is.
I am the one and only.
Oh, yeah, you did that last time, didn't you?
I know,
Yeah.
sorry.
I shouldn't have asked that.
That was his only number one hit, and he's done very well out of that hit, I'll tell you.
Yeah. And of course, for the older generation, he's the son of Chip Hawkes.
That's right, yeah.
Of the Tremeloes.
And it was Chip that I actually knew, first of all, because...
when he was a wee boy.
When he was a wee boy, yes. Chip was on many of the tours that I compared on the 60s tour as part of the Tremeloes. And then it so happened Chip unfortunately took ill, and he phoned Chesney, who was in the States living and doing a lot of songwriting stuff over there. And he said, will you come and take over with the Tremeloes? And Ches flew over and he did the whole tour, and he did a couple of tours. So that's how I got to know Ches. Plus, we did Rewind together as well in Perth a couple of years running when I did that at the beginning.
And he's got a few Scottish connections, hasn't he?
He has.
We're going to talk about that in a bit more detail. Anyway, he's going to be talking about cars, isn't he? He's going to be talking about his first car and his motoring career.
Yeah.
He's quite interested in cars, isn't
he?
Aye. It's not exactly a petrol head.
No, but he knows what he wants. And he goes back to talking about what he's, been brought up in the showbiz family, because his dad, as you say, was Chip, and his mum was Carol from The Golden Shot, the television programme. So they were very much a showbiz family. And he talks about his dad wearing the jacket with a big fur on the side and driving the Rolls Royce and all that. So that's coming up.
Okay, so there's a lot coming up, so we better get on with it.
Alan Douglas and Ali Bally. This is Scotland The Drive.
Right, so there's so much happening on the EV charging front. We've talked about it on every edition. And there are particular problems because the Charge Place Scotland network is gradually being phased out. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a bit confused about what's happening. I've got my Charge Place Scotland card. I don't know whether it'll work or not. Well, actually, I've found that most of the charging stations don't work. So the card is going along with that. It's not working either. But to try and establish what exactly is happening and what the best solutions are for EV owners, I tracked down Niall Riddell. Now, Niall is an interesting guy. He was born in Dundee. He was brought up, I think he said, in
Perthshire, wasn't he?
He's been around the country. He worked in Thurso, I think, at one point. Anyway, he now has a company called Paua Tech. Now, it sounds like Power Tech, which is it's a play on the word, but it's spelled P-A-U-A Tech. Power Tech.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So in this company, well, I'll let him tell you what the company does.
This is Scotland The Drive with Alan Douglas and Ali Bally.
So Niall Riddell from Power Tech, tell me a bit about the company.
Hey, Alan, thanks for speaking to me. So we're a provider of electric vehicle charging and payment solutions for businesses. So we help aggregate up lots of different operators across the UK and enable drivers to go out on the road, charge their vehicles, and then have all those costs centralized back into one platform that the business can then pay for all their charging when they're out on the road.
So that makes sense, but it's only for commercial operators, not for private customers, the guy or the girl with the EV.
Yeah, we predominantly provide a service to businesses. Some of our businesses provide that service on to individuals at the end of it, but the vast majority of our customers are what you might call fleet operators. They've got vans, they've got drivers out on the road. fixing boilers or delivering parcels, and we're helping provide that fuel card type experience for those businesses.
Yeah, so it's effectively an EV alternative to the fuel, the petrol or diesel fuel card. Well, that makes sense, but would you extend it to private individuals?
So we have had this experience in the past where we provide a solution. So we have a service we work with Cinch, who sells second-hand electric vehicles, and we help Cinch offer Cinch Charge back to their individual drivers. So if you buy a second-hand electric vehicle through Cinch, it comes with a card in the glove box. You activate it, and off you go. You've then got a service as an individual. So we have done a little bit of this in the past, but we find that the biggest service value proposition we really offer is all that richness of data and insight that we bring together for the business. So to date, a lot of our focus has been home, public, and depot charging and bringing that integrated service together. So a business has complete visibility of their charging costs.
And how is business? Is it growing?
I would say that 2025 was a bit of an awkward year for us. We had a sort of Trumpian headwind, a change in regulation and policy, and that slowed things down. There seems to be a bit more optimism in 2026. We've seen a lot of positive growth in sectors like large vans and the rigid trucks, which are starting to grow now. And therefore, businesses are adopting vehicles quite rapidly. But we've still got a long way to go until we get to 2030 when, a vast majority of new vehicles hitting the roads will be electric.
Now, certainly you have no connection with Charge Place Scotland, but there seems quite a bit of confusion in Scotland about what's happening with the Charge Place Scotland network. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so Charge Place Scotland was set up a number of years ago by the Scottish Government through Transport Scotland to support the rollout of infrastructure. It was a pretty clever mechanism. The government provided some funding to a host, and that host in return built some infrastructure. The infrastructure then connected back into this one network, which was Charge Place Scotland. What that unfortunately led to was it meant that the only real way of getting new developers to build infrastructure in Scotland was through that relationship with Transport Scotland. So it almost deterred private investment into the Scottish networks, because you were looking at a subsidised piece of infrastructure, and often early on it was free charging, which was fabulous for uptake. And for those that were able to access it, it was a great way of adopting an electric vehicle. That model, however, had a cost to government, and as more people adopted it, they've moved away from it. So prices now exist, and they're looking at removing the aggregated Charge Place Scotland layer. There's about 414 different hosts that use that Charge Place Scotland network, and they're now being offered the choice of how they want to proceed. Do they continue to work with the current provider, which is a company called eVault, or do they move to one of the other providers that can offer them a service to run their charges? So companies like Fuse and Monatech, the ability to run their charger, run their software, and enable them to collect and manage all the payments. So what people are doing is migrating, and the consequence is you see this network of about 4,500 chargers now breaking out into different owners and different operators.
Your explanation is excellent, and it just emphasizes just how complex this whole thing is. Where does that leave the person with the Charge Place Scotland card? I've got one. What do I do? Do I hold on? Do I have to change it, or what do I do?
So the Charge Place Scotland card, as I understand it, will continue to work on Charge Place Scotland chargers that are still connected to that network, but that network will become smaller and smaller as time passes. So ultimately what it means is if you want to access all of the different networks that has now become, so it will split into 5, 6, 7 providers, you will need to access a different solution. Now, we talk about this as electric vehicle charge cards. It's sometimes referred to as roaming. It's sometimes referred to an EMSP service. That EMSP is Electric Mobility Service Provider, which is kind of industry jargon for a charge card. We have partners like ourselves. There are 4 companies listed on the Charge Place Scotland website currently who provide that access to an aggregated set of operators. So that's ourselves at Paua. It's the guys at All Star who do a business solution. It's the team at Octopus Electroverse, and it's the team at ZapMap. So those 4 companies all provide an aggregated service. If you're an individual, the 2 companies that you should be looking at are Octopus Electroverse and the team at ZapMap, both of whom provide that one holistic experience across that service.
Yeah, so if you've got one of their cards, you could use it at any charging point.
Yes. So in the UK in total, we have about 150 different charge point operators. So it's a very, very fragmented landscape. If you had a Charge-based Scotland card, it generally would not work at Osprey or Instavolt or GridServe. But if you adopt the ZapMap service or the Octopus service, or if you're a business and you adopt Paua, you will get access to GridServe and Octopus and GridServe and Osprey and Instavolt and others, as well as these new parts of the ChargePlace Scotland network. So ESO, Fuse, Monta, and others who are adopting the various parts of that service.
So is there any advantage in doing that over just turning up at a charge point and flashing your credit card?
And this, therein, right there, is exactly why we focused on providing a business service. The big advantage to a business is it's a central aggregated bill, all the data in one place. As an individual, generally, the credit card and the ZapMap or the Octopus Electroverse service will give you similar experiences. The big difference is a credit card can't tell you where a charger is. It doesn't give you the receipt. It doesn't give you all the data. And that is why an aggregated service provider makes more sense. If you need a receipt, if you need to find chargers in a different location because you're going somewhere unusual, you're taking your holiday break, you want to find a charger, then the people like ZapMap provide that app and that data to the individual to land to see it.
Actually, you can get a receipt because just this afternoon I charged at an Arnold Clark station and I got a receipt. You have to ask for the receipt, but it prints it or it downloads it for you.
And fascinatingly, the most read blog on our website is how to get a receipt at an electric vehicle charge point. Because you might imagine with 150 operators, there's 150 slightly different ways to do that. So yes, you can get a receipt. What this enables you to do is centralize that experience.
So looking at your crystal ball then, are things going to get a bit simpler, a bit more straightforward? Are we going to be able to have a system that's as easy as going at the filling station and putting in a couple of or a few hundred litres?
Hopefully not a few hundred litres. So some of our trucks will charge hundreds of kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
Yes, looking at the crystal ball, I think the whole experience we're getting as consumers is going to get better. About 2 years ago, government started a whole process engaging around what the consumer experience looks like, and they launched the public charge point regulations. Those regulations encourage things like 24/7 call centers, reliability standards, common pricing methodologies, simple access and data, which is what a lot of businesses like ZapMap and ourselves have been doing to help customers, help drivers have a better experience. We'll see a rollout of new modern infrastructure. The number of operators now will push to get, key routes and particularly things like the A9 electrified so that we can see easier charging experiences for drivers up and down those routes. And for commercial operators, I'm excited to see where we can get larger sites to, long wheelbase vans, rigid trucks, and even your articulated lorries can get out and charge. So yes, I'm hopeful that we're going to see a better, easier future for everyone.
But the best solution is still to have your own charger at home, isn't it?
Having a charger at home is 100% the best solution ever. It takes 10 seconds to plug in, it charges overnight, and you never have to visit a petrol station ever again. However, and there is still a lot of debate around this, there's a large chunk of people who don't have access to that, either a private driveway or a driveway where they can build a charger. So that number can be 40 or 50%, depending on what data set you look at. So we have to remember we don't want to leave people behind on this transition. So for those people who don't have access to a private driveway, we still need to consider how we keep it simple to get people on the road charging where they're out and about, and think about the cost of that.
Okay, Niall Riddell, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to Scotland The Drive.
Thank you very much.
Scotland The Drive with Alan Douglas and Ali Bally.
So that was Niall Riddell of Paua Tech. While we're on the subject of charging, our friend Norrie Hunter, who we've referred to a few times.
Hi, Norrie.
He was the ex-PR at Linwood, among many other jobs he had. But he's a great EV enthusiast. He has his own electric car. But he was telling me, and in fact, it was in the Daily Record. He had a piece in the Daily Record about this. He went into a hotel in Aviemore,
right,
and he drove in, and the camera obviously clocked his car going in. And he went in, charged his car, And later he was hit with a £100 fine for not buying a parking ticket. Now, it says, EV cars can park and charge and they don't have to pay this. So he appealed, and the parking company just said, oh, no, and threw it out. He then appealed to the hotel and they managed to have it cancelled. But the point he was making was that the camera catches a car going into the car park. It doesn't establish whether you're going to charge or not. And a lot of people are unaware of this. So you've got to be very careful if you go into a public car park where there is limited parking and you've got to buy a parking ticket, despite what the signs say about if you're charging, it's free. You've got to be careful. You've got to watch out for this because you could be hit with a parking ticket, with a fine. So probably the best thing to do is buy a ticket just to be on the safe side. But it's something to watch out for.
A lot of the hotels tell you you've got to go into reception to register the car registration.
Yeah.
So if you don't do that, that's you leaving yourself open, even though you are paying for the charging and charging it on. So I know a couple of hotel car parks that I've gone to and charged the car up. I've put it on to charge and gone into the hotel, had a coffee or a bowl of soup or whatever and put the registration in while I've been sitting there so that I'm not charged for it. Yeah.
I've got an electric car. Yeah.
Well, so you have.
It's lovely, isn't it? Look at that. It's got headlights.
It moves. It moves.
It's my little electric car. I'll just send it. Right. Okay.
Definitely moves.
Yeah, I'll bring it back. But that's the best electric car. No problem with charging. You just stick a couple of AA batteries in. And,
it's a lot easier, isn't it?
And it's good fun. That was a Christmas present. You see, it's sad, isn't it?
Compared to some of the electric cars we've had, that's really good because it moves.
Yeah. What do you give to a petrol head for Christmas? An electric car. Radio controlled. It's even better.
Can I go on to our competition?
Yes.
Last week.
Yes, I knew there was something else.
Right.
Yep.
Polestar will be introducing 4 cars. I was asking last week for you to tell me the number of cars they were introducing. And thanks very much. Loads of entries. Really good. So good to hear from you and some comments coming in with it as well. The winner that came out of the draw just before we started drawing this has actually written a little email to us as well about the programme. So coming out with the answer for 4 cars is Alan Murray. Alan, congratulations to you. You've got the mug. It will be with you shortly, or we'll be in touch with you shortly, something like that. But one of these, you'll get one anyway. But he does say, I agree that Ford should not have brought back the Capri name, certainly not for an SUV, because we were discussing this the other week there, and even our man behind the camera there was talking about it as he was coming in, because you've got the Capri and it's sitting outside. Not had 2 of the lovely beasts, not against the new tech, and have a Renault Zoe electric whilst we now charge wholly from home. I appreciate the info regarding Charge Place Scotland, which I hadn't heard. He says, I helped my dad a lot in the younger day, changing brakes, pads and drums, repairing exhausts, tuning, etc. Well, this is a true petrol head here. Yeah, definitely. And at least in the area of the era of the Capri, you had a chance of fixing it yourself. Modern cars seem to have, you really have to take it into the dealership and get them to have a look at it. Anyway, thanks very much indeed for your comments there. Noted, and nice to know that you're enjoying the podcast. Any suggestions for the podcast, apart from go away, do let us know. The email address is scotlanddrive@gmail.com.
I was watching telly the other week. I don't know if you've seen it. What's it called? Small Profits, not PROH. It's PROPH. But again, here's the petrol head. Great program, really enjoyable, nice and relaxed. Nice program, relaxing program to watch. But the best bit was he drives a Capri, the original Capri.
Really?
Yeah, mind you, true to form, it blows up. Well, it doesn't blow up. The engine explodes or something, and oil pours out of it. But it was lovely to see the Capri.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I did? A really sad petrol head. I went on to is my car taxed, just to check if that car was actually on the road.
On the road.
Taxed and MOT'd.
droid.
I know,
With a
absolutely.
droid. Just before we move on, let me just say this week's competition, rather than having you stuck to it, trying to find an answer, it's simple. We're going back to this week. Everybody who subscribes and to our channel, to YouTube or whatever, and remember, it's free. Then everybody who subscribes will go into the draw and come out on the next edition, see who wins the mug. So it's as simple as that. Just subscribe, please. It doesn't cost anything. We just need to get our subscription numbers up, and it just lets us know and others know if anybody's actually watching this.
Scotland The Drive with Alan Douglas and Ali Bally.
Right. On to Chesney, your pal Chesney.
On to Chesney, yes. Spent many good nights with him throughout the UK. So he actually, I think it was the last tour I was doing with him, he had a podcast himself, and he was saying, you should do a podcast. You should do about something. And then we started talking about motoring. So I suppose he really planted the seed a couple of years ago. So who better to ask? But when I phoned and tried to get hold of him, they said, he's away at the moment. Where is he? He's on a ship in the Caribbean somewhere. So here is Chesney Hawkes from the ship in the Caribbean.
This is Scotland The Drive, my first car.
And it's time for us to say, what was your first car? And we say that today on this edition to Chesney Hawkes. How are you?
Hello, mate. I'm good. I'm very, very good. I'm nowhere near a motor car at the moment. I'm on a ship in the middle of the Caribbean Ocean.
So. It's always better to clarify that when you start something like this, so that the anything that happens in between, everybody knows where you are. You're in the middle of an ocean somewhere.
Yeah. So if I suddenly do this, what's happened.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. I mean, going back, just talking about cars then, going back to when you were a youngster, let's say even before you were anywhere near a driving license age, were you brought up, I mean, your dad and mum both in the show business side, were they into cars? Were they in that, did you get a bit of that from them?
I mean, in a very pop star way, yes, because as you know and know him very well, my dad was the lead singer of the Tremolos. So we lived in a kind of slightly affluent area and stuff. And, my dad, he's over the years, I remember my favorite car of his when I was a kid was a white Jag. And it was like an old, there was two actually. It was another, he had a Silver Shadow Rolls Royce.
Wow.
Yeah, like proper pop star, right? So imagine being dropped off at school in a white Silver Shadow. He had the fur collar, everything. To go with it.
That's just as I imagined him to be like.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So it must have been a great childhood coming up in that era then. Because as you say, your dad was a big pop star.
Yeah, he was one of the original heartthrobs in a way, because I always felt like I was born in the wrong decade, Ali. It's because they were pioneers, those guys, and I know you and I have spent a lot of time with a lot of those original '60s bands over the years, and I'm slightly jealous of it because they started it all. It's like obviously with the Beatles kind of taking rock and roll and blues and country music out of the 12-bar blues and adding a few 6 chords and a few 7 chords and that kind of started this whole revolution and everything was new, so all of those records from early 60s, I would so love to have been on the crest of that wave, it all kind of been done by the time I came along. But I kind of went back and lived it vicariously through Dad in a way, and just kind of always wonder what it must have been like in those days.
I think though the tours that we've done together, the 60s Gold tours, I mean, that gives you we've had a little bit of that though, because the audience is coming along to that, still want to live that experience, don't they?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, anything nostalgia. I mean, I'm now on the nostalgia circuit myself in a different generation, of course. But of course, the '60s bands, the people that come to see them and relive their youth, are all in their 70s and 80s and sometimes 90s. Talk about unbelievable memories. Going back to remembering what it was like listening to that music and following those guys. I mean, it's incredible. That's why I loved doing it. And talking to the people that came along and just, and they would bring their kids along that would be my age, and to experience and just to be able to see those guys. Like just the stories from like Barry, the drummer from Herman's.
Yes.
The stories, hanging out with Elvis and just kind of touring with the Beatles, and I mean all these incredible rock and roll anecdotes from years gone by, and I'm sure some of them are slightly exaggerated, but I didn't care. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Good story. Well, we had that in this very room that we're sitting in at the moment, in our dining room, because we had a night off from the 60s Gold Tour, and it happened to land in our city where we live. And Barry and a few of the Hermans came here, and we had an Indian takeaway. We sat here with the stories, and it was just amazing just to hear where they've been and how successful they still are. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, but they have such a rich history. That's the thing. They, as I said before, it's like, before that group of guys and girls, of course, before they came along, it was just, American blues and rock and roll, and, and for that. That's why I could sit and talk to Barry all day, and he's probably the oldest of that group that we know, that has been around since day one. I mean, I think he's been in the band nearly 60 years now, isn't he?
Yes, and his stories are fantastic. Yeah,
and he's a great raconteur, isn't he?
Oh, he really is. He really is. We went for dinner one night with Gary Puckett. Gary was on the tour, and Gary's wife phoned me from Florida and said, he was telling me today that there's no show tonight. I'd hate to think it was his 80th birthday. So I'd hate to think that he was going to be sitting on his own on his 80th birthday. So Barry and I took Gary out to a restaurant somewhere down there. I have no idea where we were. But the stories were just absolutely amazing. But going back to cars then, let's get back to the cars and the Silver Shadows.
Back to the cars.
That's the programme's called Scotland to Drive. So let's talk about cars. What about you then? What did you... not being able to drive, not having that license, and seeing the cars that were going around, what was your first car that you said, I wish I could get behind that?
What, you mean that my kind of like wishful, I wish I had that car?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was always into classic cars myself. So I loved kind of, MGs, old Triumph, TRs, that kind of thing. Money pits, basically.
Yes.
And then, my first car, actually, I saved up £175 for, and it was a Honda Civic. Yeah, it was probably a piece of shit, really. And I remember putting, you remember the older air fresheners where it was like a kind of a plastic turtle or something like. You remember those? You put in. I remember putting that on the bonnet of the car, like it was like a Rolls Royce emblem. Or. Yeah, or the Mercedes Benz thing. So mine was this plastic air freshener on the front. I glued it to the front of the bonnet. But then that was when I was kind of and I just passed my test at I guess I was 17. But when I first made it, and I actually started to I had money. I was like, right, I'm going to go back and get the classic car that I always wanted. And so the first kind of proper car that I ever bought was a Triumph TR3.
Oh, right.
A red Triumph TR3. It looked like Noddy's car, Proper money pit. I remember spending a lot on it and then spending double that fixing it up, and in the end it was just it was like every week it was in the shop. I loved it to death, and just it was my favorite thing in the world. And everybody knew me around the area for like, that's Chesney and his Noddy car, but in the end I had to sell it on because it was just it was like a mortgage.
But then the family come along, and I know you have children as well. So you need something more practical for the children. So what did you drive in those days?
when the kids were little, I mean, to be honest with you, I went from being kind of, getting the pop star cars, and I had sports cars. I had an MG at one point through those years, and then I'll get to when the kids were little. But I remember when I first got money, I bought everyone a car in my family. I was like Oprah, you get a car, you get a car. My mum got a Mercedes, convertible Mercedes. My dad, he got a BMW. My brother got a Ford Fiesta. I remember that. I think it outlasted the Mercedes and the BM, the Beamer. But anyway, flashing forward to young family. I mean, my wife is a very practical person, and she was like, we can't be taking the kids around in sports cars, and so let's be practical about this. And so we ended up with the classic people carrier. It was a Toyota Previa, and then got really used to having space, and I actually still really love that. You're high up, you've got loads of room. It doubles up as, obviously you can fit all the kids, the dogs and everything in it, but then you can take all the seats out and you can put a drum kit in there. So it's a great musician car. They don't really make those people carriers anymore. It's funny because when I moved to America in 2012, I loved my Toyota Previa. I loved it, and we sold it obviously, and then got to America, and you could buy something similar. And I got a thing in America. It's a similar thing called a Sienna, but it's the same thing. It's like a people carrier, 8 seats, 7 seats, or whatever it is. Multi-purpose vehicle type of thing. And then when I came back here a couple of years ago, I was like, right, I'm going to go get myself another, people carrier type of thing. They don't make them anymore. It's all SUVs now,
Yeah, that's
and
it,
which is not as much space, not as practical, not as kind of multi-purpose, as it were. So if you want something like that, you have to kind of buy an old one,
So is that what you're driving now?
No, I ended up at the moment, we're kind of like in between, because I didn't know how long we were going to be staying and whatever. So I'm kind of like an in between at the moment. I'm in a Kia Sorento at the moment, So
Good choice.
Yeah, it's a nice car, and they run well and everything else. But I do miss my days of sports car. I'm getting to that age where I should get myself a nice little sports car again, shouldn't I?
I was just going to ask, do you think you'll go, as you enjoy classic cars, do you think you'll turn around a little bit? Not that I'm saying you're getting older, but
it's a midlife crisis thing. Isn't it? Classic,
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, a lot of men do that, don't they? Go and get themselves something that they had in their youth, like an old convertible classic car, and yeah, and then a lot of other men go off with their secretaries. But I'm not doing that. I'll stick. My wife's yes. I'm going to stick with where I am.
Good. That's good to hear.
What about your children? I remember your daughter was at St Andrews University. Does she drive around here?
Well, no. When we were in America, we had 3 cars, and we all kind of shared. So I had I had 2 of those big people carriers actually, all white. They were all white. So we were like the all white on the night family, and we had the white Toyota. New Toyota Sienna, and then another white old Toyota, like a people carrier, and then another Kia Sorento, funnily enough. So we would all kind of share them, which was great. And I loved that. But since we've come back here, the kids, my youngest has got his license, but the other 2 haven't got that together yet. It just takes a while. You have to kind of change it all up again. So right now the driveway literally has 2 cars. It has my son's beaten up old Toyota Corolla, which is great, and then our little Kia Sorento.
Yeah. Are you here to stay in this country then? Are you been back? Was that 2 years now?
It will be 2 years this summer, actually.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I believe we are now home. It's I missed a lot about the UK. I miss the green and pleasant land. coming to Scotland and, hanging out with Jessie, my daughter, and, in St Andrews, and literally where you turn every corner and you have to stop for a scenic photograph because you can't, you can't, that's why it takes so long to go anywhere in Scotland, because you have to stop and just take in the view. That's my favourite drive, that one, one where you get past Edinburgh and then, head north, and as soon as you kind of get into kind of that beautiful countryside, it's just it's God's country, isn't it? Let's be honest. I know you're biased.
Yeah. I often say that when you're coming north and you come across the Friarton Bridge in Perth, heading up to Dundee, and it's just that whole patch, that whole scenery, just it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
All the way up to Aberdeen and across to Inverness, and obviously that is kind of like the band highway, isn't it? It's like when you do your tours, you normally do. You come up, and you'll maybe do Glasgow, and then go and then drive up to Inverness, and maybe there'll be some other little stops, but you always hit Aberdeen, and then back down to maybe Dundee and possibly Perth, maybe Edinburgh, and that's kind of around. And we always, all of us musos look forward to the Scotland legs. In fact, I've got a Glasgow show coming up in March. I've got my my UK tour. So we should meet up. You should come along.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do that then. Obviously, the timing as far as your kids are concerned, is your daughter still at St Andrews, or is she finished?
She's finished now. She did 4 years, and so she's now we're the proud parents of a young lady with a degree in animal behaviour.
Oh,
wow. That's coincidence.
Yes, my daughter too.
In animal behaviour?
And she's working at St Andrews University in a laboratory.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that
amazing? I wonder if she crossed paths with
No, I don't
Jessie,
think so.
She went to a different college. She did it at college here, so.
And now she's working at university, which has just recently started. So Jessie will be away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
Small world.
Because Jessie, obviously, Jessie spent 4 years in those laboratories.
Yeah. And she enjoys them. In the times I spoke to Jessie, she really enjoyed St Andrews, didn't she?
She did. And we enjoyed her being there because, as parents, you just want to get, when they leave home like that, she's back with us now, but like she was away for 4 years, but you just want them to be somewhere safe, and of course I think actually of all of the universities up and down the UK, I think St Andrews is probably the safest, and it's such a and it's such a beautiful kind of warm, kind of encompassing area, and everybody there is so lovely. I was just so happy that she was there, and she really loved it too, and she loved Scotland. She misses it actually already.
Well, it's been a pleasure as always catching up with you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on our podcast Scotland Drive. It's always interesting to find out what people drive and what they've enjoyed driving. Out of all your cars then that you've had, what is your favourite? What sits up there?
It has to be my Triumph TR3. No matter if it did cost me a few mortgages, I still love it. I kind of miss it, and sometimes I'll, catch a little photos come up on my screen or whatever. Or my mum, she's a great collector of old photos, and sometimes it will come up, and I'll be like, oh, I wonder where it is. I wonder who's looking after it now. So yeah, that's my favourite.
This is Scotland, The Drive, with Alan Douglas and Ali Bally.
So we've been talking a lot about EVs and charging and everything, but the old conventional thing of sticking fuel in your fuel tank, a lot's changing there as well.
Mm-hmm.
You see this new legislation where it was from the beginning of February, new mandatory rules for displaying petrol and diesel prices. So petrol stations have got to display the prices. Now you'll say, well, they've always done that with the big board outside. They don't have to do that. I didn't realize that, but it's not
mandatory.
Mandatory. Thank you.
That's okay.
It's not mandatory to display the prices on a big board outside.
Right. Okay.
You have to display them on the pump.
Mm-hmm.
But what's happened is that the government have introduced this thing where retailers are required to update this fuel finder database every 30 minutes, or at least every 30 minutes, it's got to be accurate about what the accurate price is at that particular pump. And I thought, well, that's good. And then I thought, no, hang on. I'm driving along. I want to get some fuel. Normally, I would just look out for,
The
price.
Yeah.
That's a good price. I'll go in and fill up. What I have to do now, as I understand it, is have to go into this fuel finder app or database and check what the price is. That's not going to work. And then I thought, well, I've seen it already that some retailers are not putting the prices up outside. The board's still there, but there's no prices. And I think this is part of this process of going towards the database. But the government's intention is to make it more obvious, more transparent, clearer. But in fact, the opposite's happening. It's less clear.
It was their reaction to fuel prices going up and up and up, and this was to try and quell the drivers' anger in the fact that prices were going so high, and it would give them a chance to look around and see where the cheapest prices were. But you're right, nobody's really going to right, I need petrol, I don't know where I am, let's find the cheapest, so I've got to look up this app.
Yeah. But the other thing is, I thought about it, and I spent a lot of time thinking about these things.
Yeah.
And I thought, what's the difference? 10 pence difference in prices from this filling station to that filling station. What does it matter? It's nothing. But then I thought, well, you're sticking 50 litres in, and there's 10 pence of difference per litre. That's a fiver. And you're doing that. Some people will be doing that, but many people will be doing that once a week. So 52 weeks, you're talking 250 quid.
Yeah.
So it does make a lot of difference. It may seem only pennies, but look after the pennies, and the pounds look after themselves.
Yeah.
So it is important, but I think it's going to lead to a lot of confusion. As I say, on the face of it, I thought greater transparency, going to make it much clearer. In fact, I don't think it is. I think it's going to make it even more confusing.
No, I agree.
More hassle.
I agree. It's not been made as simple as the transport minister was thinking it was when he first talked about it.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Eric Dymock.
Yeah, please.
You know him as well. You've
Absolutely.
known him for a long time. Eric was a legend in motoring journalism, and I've got some details of his life story. He died in January at the grand old age of 91. But his career is
amazing.
It was absolutely amazing. He actually started with the Hamilton Advertiser. Would you believe one of his first road tests was the E-Type?
Really?
The Jaguar E-Type when it was launched. That was one of his first road tests. But what he did was he worked around various publications, I think. But he got to know Jim Clark and Jackie Stewart when they were, well, not quite boys, but at the start of their career. So because of that, he established a relationship with them. That gave him a good insight into the world of motor racing, and it gave him a head start above all his other motoring journalist colleagues. And he had, as I say, a glowing career. He wrote for The Observer, News International, Sunday newspapers. He wrote scripts for TV motoring programmes from Thames TV, Australian Broadcasting, and the BBC, including the first version of Top Gear. And he was a regular contributor to Going Places on Radio 4, a motoring editor of the Sunday Times, and then he moved on to writing books and motoring history books.
Dove Publishing.
Which he established. He was down in Lincoln by this time. He'd moved to Lincoln. Well, he'd already been in England for a long time. But he established these, and he wrote The History of Saab, Half a Century of Achievement, The History of Bentley, and then he did he was particularly proud of a biography of Jim Clark, which he published in 1997. And in fact, only a year ago, he produced a new edition of the book.
That's right.
But he was a character as well. I mean, I was surprised he was 91. I knew he was an old man, but he was still pretty sprightly.
Well, even
91.
When we go back a couple of months to October last year, when we're getting towards the Car of the Year awards, and Eric phoned because he wherever possible. Over the last couple of years, he didn't make it, but wherever possible, he and his family came up to all the Scottish Car of the Year awards. And he was a character, and he would always want the opportunity to come on stage and plug his latest book. Can I come? Will you present a trophy, Eric? Yes, if I can say something, and that he would go on to plug his book. But it was only in October last year that he phoned and said, "I'm not going to make it this year." He says, "I'm feeling a bit down." So, and then he passed away. But a real gentleman. And I've got one of the, I bought one of the leather-bound books on Bentley, I think it was, and I gave it to someone who was into that particular car. And I've got another of Eric's books bound that he gave me as a gift. So it's sad to see him go, but excellent journalist, and at 91 he did the motoring trades. A former member of the Association of Scottish Motoring Writers as well.
And he's left quite a legacy, not just in his books, but in his writing career.
Absolutely.
So. Yeah. So there were Eric Dymock. Now, a pickup. I'm a fan of pickups.
Yeah, you are. You've got one.
I've got one. I've got an Isuzu pickup, and I saw a press release from Isuzu. Talk about seizing opportunities to promote a product.
Yeah, no, it's very clever.
They did a survey of people moving home, and apparently it's one of the most stressful things you can do in your life, as we know. But they've coupled it with a plug for the benefits of owning a pickup. Did you know that British people move home 5 times on average in their career, in their life, making 25 trips and shifting the equivalent of 36 carloads of belongings each time? So, that's a good reason to have a pickup, according to Isuzu. You should have a pickup because they're a practical solution. 83% of those surveys said moving would be significantly easier with a pickup, highlighting their growing role as everyday vehicles, not just workhorses. It was a survey of 2,000 UK adults by Isuzu. But what I found more interesting in all this was the statistics about moving home. As I said, people make 5 moves in their life, 25 trips between your old and new home, 36 carloads of belongings, 180 boxes squeezed into the car, and 15 arguments between you and your partner.
True.
And 15 bouts of tears, 15 broken items, and 15 times you wish that you'd never bothered to move in the first place. You've moved house a few times.
I've moved house a few times, yeah, I have to say. And it's always, I'm just thinking today when we were talking about that article, we never seem to have a pickup. And you've got one all the time, so it maybe doesn't apply to you as such, but we get these rotor cars, and when you need a pickup, there's never one coming up,
Yeah.
And a few weeks ago, got a knock at the door, and at the house door here, and it was the neighbour who was across the back garden to us. She says, "Just to let you know, the storm blew down your fence." I was like, "All right, okay." So it's okay, we'll put it back up in a pile. And away they went, and it was really that bad storm. So in my crutches, I went round when I thought I could walk around to the back. And we went round there, and here it is lying in a pile, this fence. All the wood is just lying. And both the good lady and I said to each other at the same time, "When's the next pickup due on the rotor?" So it's still lying there. So there was.
No, it used to be, these press cars, they're great when you get them for these test cars that you get to review. But you can guarantee you get a convertible in the midwinter.
That's right.
And you get a 4-wheel drive in the height of summer. And occasionally you get a van. The van's the best.
The van's a good one.
Throw the stuff in the van.
I've been lucky enough to hit a van at the right time when we're moving.
Yeah,
a couple of times.
yeah.
A couple of times.
But there you are. A pickup is the answer. You know what's even better than a pickup?
Go on.
Pickup and a trailer. I've got a trailer as well.
Oh, you've got a trailer as well?
Trailer as well. Oh, now you're cooking. Hey,
petrol head.
Pickup. Anyway, that's it for this edition.
Yep, Scotland the Drive has been and gone. Just a reminder, if you'd like to win one of our mugs, which have all disappeared from this room, so I don't know where they've gone, Pinch, but if you'd like to win one, we'd like to give you one. So all you have to do is you can watch on YouTube, of course, for those listening on Spotify, go into YouTube as well. And follow Scotland the Drive on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and subscribe. So everybody who subscribes goes into the draw to win one of our limited edition mugs.
And next time, we're going to be mixing with, not quite royalty, but almost royalty.
Nearly on the edge of it.
What's royalty? I think royalty are kind of busy with other things at the moment. But that apart, no, we're going to be speaking to the Lord Lieutenant of Perth and Kinross,
Indeed.
Stephen Leckie, who is the King's representative in
Perthshire.
Perthshire. Yes, of course. I was going to say Scotland, but it's just Perthshire. But he's big in Perthshire.
And he's big into cars.
He's big into cars. He's got a fantastic collection of cars, and he likes to tinker with them as well. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, cars are for driving, not for tinkering with. But he likes to tinker as well as drive them. So next edition, we'll be speaking to Stephen, and he has some interesting stories to tell.
Indeed.
So join us for that next time. In the meantime, thanks for joining us on Scotland The Drive.
Safe driving. Bye-bye.
Scotland The Drive with Alan Douglas and Ali Bally.